Okay, what we have going on today? Today is Wednesday, August 26th. First up, 2 days before U.S.-Canada trade talks dramatically derail, Vice President J.D. Vance was telling an audience at a private fundraiser that Prime Minister Mark Carney was a very sweet guy. In a private audio recording leaked to the Canadian press, Vance reportedly went on to say that Carney comes in and puffs his chest out and says, "I'm going to like, but out to Donald Trump." He described that approach as hilarious because the Canadians ultimately climbed down on a lot of issues. Well, I don't know if Canada is going to climb down on this one. Canada's retaliation test the limit of American power under Trump. This is from Anthony Zurcher, the North American correspondent with BBC News. But anyway, as you may have heard, President Trump levy a 50% tariff on our closest and biggest import neighbor. The closest is subjective. It all depends on where you are, of course. But in terms of the importance of the relationship, I don't think there's any trade relationship or ally as close as Canada, especially for those who are in the North, and even more, especially if you're in Detroit. Lived in Detroit, and it is the only place in America where you could actually go south to go into Canada. Well, in the contiguous, of course, you got Alaska, but in the contiguous of that, the 48, that is the only place that you can go south to go into Alaska. To Canada when you cross over. But anyway, the relationship between Canada and the United States is dramatically demonstrated in Detroit, because if you have the building a new bridge, or they built a new bridge, the Ambassador Bridge, and of course the tunnel that you can take into Canada, and every day so much trade goes back and forth, trucks carrying cargo and so forth, and just people, tourists, visitors, business being conducted. So much of what happens with the three automakers also have components in Canada. Parts are made there. Things are assembled there. You look across the river, Detroit River, and you're looking into Canada. Vice versa, when they look across, they're looking into Detroit. So there is a symbiotic relationship there that's not being taken into consideration when we talk about this willful, unnecessary trade war that we've instigated against one of our closest trading partners and best allies. Not sure where that's going to lead to in terms of something of a positive benefit, but definitely sure that it will lead to higher prices on a number of things. As I mentioned, the auto industry is inseparably connected to Canada and what we're doing back and forth with them. But there are other things, Canadian whiskey and clothing and timber and materials, iron, steel. Whole bunch of things go back and forth, not to mention agricultural products that we share with them and they share with us. Canadian maple syrup, for example, but we're also talking about things like beef and everything else. The list goes on and on. So it's hard to see how this will have any productive impact that will positively affect our wallets or our pocketbooks. I can see detrimental effects quite quickly, and we will see how this all works out. That we know that Orange Julius Caesar loves to huff and puff when he makes these edicts, and we know him about Taco, that Trump always chickens out. I know he's tried to toughen his spine a little bit on some of these things, but when it relates to things that may impact the money, and especially how he is viewed, then he may be chickening out on this too. We hope Orange Julius Caesar changes his mind, and that we can actually do things that are neighborly to our neighbors. You know what I'm saying? Let's be neighborly to our neighbors in Canada and Mexico. Of course, we can make sure our borders are secured and all those things, but I don't think that's really been the big issue with Canada. So we need to rethink what's going on with that. In the news also, I know a big thing. One of the headlines is that Trump nabs crucial wins. Other key takeaways from yesterday's elections. This is from The Hill. Trump nabs the crucial primary there in South Carolina. Again, I touched on that previously with Lindsey Graham's sister winning the endorsement of Trump, and that was enough to propel her into being the Republican nominee for the Senate, replacing Senator Lindsey Graham. Much as I, didn't particularly care for Lindsey's politics, at least I knew that he was conversant, more than conversant. He was knowledgeable on foreign policy issues. We didn't always agree with the stances, but I did agree with the stance that we should be more supportive of Ukraine, visibly supportive, tangibly supportive, monetarily and defensively supportive, so that we could, that Russian threat that Trump seems to take so lightly, the North Korean threat that Trump seems to take so lightly, that his persona, his personality is enough to sway these leaders who've been in office, who've been, at the heads of their states much longer than he has or will ever be, that they owe some allegiance or fidelity to him because he thinks he's that likable. I'm not sure about that one. But anyway, Trump nabs that crucial primary wins South Carolina, Oklahoma, and where else did he do? I think those were the big two. But anyway, it's going to be interesting to see what happens in the general elections. It is a very red state, South Carolina, but you have this incompetent, unprepared person that's running for office against whoever the Democratic opponent will be. So it will be interesting to see if people are just loyal to a party or are they actually considering competence. When you're a small state like South Carolina, who you have as a senator in there, they have Tim Scott in there also, but I think those were the only two. So you want to make sure that at least, who you have in there is a strong representative for what you are doing. So that's it on that front. What else do we have in the dares? Oh, obviously, want to acknowledge the passing of Miss Dolly Parton. Dolly will always be a legend. Her writing creds are incredible. They extend to, things like Islands in the Stream. And of course, I Will Always Love You from The Bodyguard, which she'd already recorded previously. But then when she allowed Whitney Houston to do it, it took it to a whole nother level. So I'm sure she benefited incredibly from the royalties from that and the publishing from owning that, writing that. So big ups to someone who generally seemed to have a heart to care and be concerned, from the literacy programs that she supported to the things that she did behind the scenes, such as paying for books and other things, textbooks and so forth for school kids that needed that. And in addition, she was an entrepreneur. She has, just saw on the shelf yesterday, she has a pancake mix, cupcakes and all those types of things, bakery goods. But then she has her theme park, Dollywood. So she had her hands in a lot of things, but she always seemed very genuine and really willing to give back. And that's all we ask of people, is that they have a heart, that they have that humanitarian spirit, that if you made it, why not and try to help somebody else make it as well. That seemed to be a genuine realness about Dolly. Maybe it's the fact that she did grow up in Appalachia, that she did grow up under hard scrabble conditions, and that made her more sensitive to those who were enduring likewise. Whatever it was, we're grateful and thankful, and we remember and acknowledge Dolly. I saluted her a little bit on the video yesterday, the tail end of the video, but I wanted to more overtly call it out to her. Another person, a great, who's no longer with us, who's with the ancestors, who would have her heavenly birthday today, is the late great Bishop Dr. Barbara Lewis King of Hillside Chapel and Truth Center. That's what it was at the time. It's Hillside International Truth Center right now. But that's who ordained me in 2012. So I want to salute, give a heavenly shout out to Dr. B. She was definitely a big personality in every single sense of the way. So, ashe, ashe, ashe. Oh, let's see what else is going on. Oh, U.S. trying to strangle Iran's economy. Again, we tapped on that a little bit yesterday, but Oman and Iran have supposedly divvied up and figured out how they're going to charge money to make this thing happen, how they're going to charge for people going through the Strait of Hormuz. And it's interesting because right now it's at a stalemate and nothing is really moving through. We've had piracy kick back in with the Somali pirates over in the Red Sea. So what's going to truly happen is yet to be seen. The odd thing, well, I don't know if it's odd, but it's interesting thing is that all of this happened out of just the ego because President Obama had in place the restrictions on development of nuclear arms. And that was the ongoing premise or the premise from the offset or the onset of this war, which is that it was about curtailing their ability to have nuclear arms. But months before, they had bombed what was supposed to be their nuclear stockpile and said that completely obliterated their ability to do those things. That was the exact word that they used, obliterated. So if something's obliterated, why then is there a need to come back and wage a war to destroy it? Obviously, this is about a lot more than just that. Who knows? I can hypothesize, and that's what this is for, because this is the front porch, or actually it's the back porch today, but it is my porch and it is my opinion. That's what I'm offering up on this day, that strategically limiting the flow of oil actually has benefits for quite a few people. That 1%, as we call it, because they own assets, considerable amount of stock and energy. And so as that supply dwindles, we know that the basic law of economics is supply and demand. A supply that is low means higher prices. And so if you have any investment, any equity in energy companies, oil companies, you know that they are making money, hand over fist, 400% profits, in fact, at Exxon. So if you have stock in those, you're actually benefiting from this crisis. Your assets, your value, your portfolio is going up. You're making money. But the average person who has to deal with the cost of living, that's who suffers in these things. So you could say conspiracy to make it happen so that these billionaires who seem to be the only ones who are benefiting from anything that's happening in the market these days, that is a conspiracy on their part to make it so, or it's coincidence. Either way, it's a C-O-N word at the beginning of it, and it's a con job either way. We just have to wait and see how all this sort of plays out as we get closer and closer to the midterms in November, the first Tuesday in November. Remember that date. We're going to need it. As we get closer and closer to that, how this will all play out and affect the ability of Republicans to get back into control of both the House, the Senate, and the executive branch. The judicial, right now, they have it all locked up and sewn up, and we need to bring some balance into this thing. I'm not advocating for one party over the other because they all are left wing, right wing, part of the same bird. But to say that they're all the same would be a false equivalency also, because at least there's some folks who may be giving lip service, but at least it's a conscious thing that they're thinking about the care and concern of others, the masses, those who are less fortunate. As Jesus said, if you did it unto the least of them, you did it unto me. So we should be measuring our success as a country, not by how the 1% are doing. Not that Elon Musk is a trillionaire, but how the rest of us do, the other 99%, or even more than that, it's probably 99.9%, how the rest of us are doing. That should be the gauge by which we measure the strength, the importance, the power, the credibility, the honor, and all those other great things that we want to ascribe to ourselves. That's how we should measure it, not by how the 1% or less than 1% are faring. Let's be fair to everyone. Uh, and that's what, at least when we have people, progressives, and now even the democratic socialists who are talking about policies that affect livability, affordability, reliability, healthcare, all those things, infrastructure, the economy, the environment, climate issues. People who are at least think about those things and speak about those things is, to me, so much better than no one who gives a good about any of that. So consider that. Again, it's my opinion, but it's my porch, so I'm entitled to give my opinion. Um, I guess those are the only things that I'll talk about today. There's always a lot of stuff to talk about. Of course, there's what's going on in Cuba. That is not in the headline today, but it's something that should be in the headline because we're intentionally starving one of our closest neighbors. They're only about 90 miles south of Key West. We're intentionally starving the children that are there, the women, the elderly, all because of something that happened close to 60 or more years ago. The Bay of Pigs and the when Russia was trying to bring missiles to that base. But we are friendly with Russia. We're friendly with the ones who are actually trying to bring the missiles, but the black and brown folk who are there, who are our neighbors, we're content to allow them to starve because of ego, uh, racism, whatever. I'm not going to call it anything, but I'll let you fill in the blanks. I have my opinions on it, sharing some of those, but what else could it be? If it, looks like a duck, quacks like a duck, walks like a duck, more than likely it's a duck, or at least it's in the duck family. So I want to send out love and light to those who are there in Cuba who are enduring this. Did it not make more sense during the Obama administration when we were opening up to cultural tourism? There was an exchange. Cuban groups were coming here, arts groups, entertainment groups, musical groups. We were going there, experiencing and exploring that is a better way and a long-term way of endearing yourself to a neighbor is by being, what did I say again? Neighborly. That was having a positive effect. And I am still not sure why Biden walked away from that. I know Trump did when he came into office. He changed that policy, but then Biden never reinstated the ability for us to travel freely to Cuba. And that type of diplomacy, human aid, USAID, we got rid of USAID that was sending out aid to the countries, developing countries who actually needed it, creating goodwill by our good activities, by beneficence, by charity, by sharing. That created more loyalty and pride and the desire to come to the United States than anything that we're doing right now, being a pariah, just like every other strong man, so-called strong person who are actually it's such a contradiction of term because they are so weak and insecure in their who they are that they have to try to control everything. So when we act like that, that is why the world turns its back on us. When we turn our back on our allies and support those who have nothing but our destruction in their minds, then it makes no sense. When we leave our flanks unprotected by overstaying ourselves in the Gulf of the Strait of Hormuz and leaving the Indian Ocean open to China and whoever else are our unfriendlies that are there, does it make sense? Not to me. Folks, let's just get back to competency. Let's get back to being able to do our jobs. Let's just get back to away from party loyalty and the loyalty to what makes us unique. And that was this experiment called democracy in the Constitution. Let's not go down this path to totalitarianism, to authoritism, to what it looks like that's happening, to just call it what it is, fascism. Let's not go down that path, but we don't have to. I know there are many tech giants who would love that, to love to have more control, to love to be able to dictate what we do, what we think, what we're exposed to. But maybe I'm confused, but I thought the Republican Party was supposed to be the party of small government. But why is it that they are continually sticking their nose into private businesses, trying to make decisions and trying to insert themselves into the businesses of other folks, demanding shares of businesses? I thought the whole thing was more so supposed to be laissez-faire, take your hands out of it, less government regulation on certain things. That was my interpretation of conservatism and what it seemed to be. But right now, there only seems to be one ideology that, what I call them, Orange Julius Caesar subscribes to, and that's profiteering. What's in it for me? What's in it for my family? And how can I protect them from the illegal mess that we've done over the years? How can I get the IRS to not be able to investigate us or our practices? All those things. Now, I'm sorry, Trump, but that's not the profile of a winner. That's the profile of a loser. And that's what I hope happens in November, that there's something that's shaken up. Again, don't get me wrong. I actually advocate for more parties than just these two. I think there needs to be more political parties so that we don't get into this left or right, red or blue, this dichotomous thing where we can have more opinions being able to be brought up to the national stage so that we can have true and honest debate, talk about these things. That's the fault of democracy, is that it requires an educated and literate voting population. The electorate need to be literate, but that's why we actually have more of a representative government. That's what we have. We don't have a true democracy. Don't get it twisted. That's why we have things like the Electoral College and those things. It's not one person, one vote, and whoever got the most vote. Else we would already had a female president with Hillary Clinton. No, there's some trickiness that needs to be taken away, because this is a different time and a different day, and what was necessary to then is not necessary now. And in the spirit of democracy, we need to start looking at some of this stuff. Hey, that's it for today. I could go on for this forever, but I won't bore y'all with this. Minister Imhotep, and I am out. You say, well, Imhotep, you're not talking about spirituality things, anything like that. But no, right now, spirituality is in everything. There is no spot where God is not, and that includes our politics. We can't do like Vance tried to do, Vice President Vance, when he told the Pope to stick to religion and theology and stay out of politics. No, everything is theology, everything is spiritual, and everything is politics. Though there is no separation. Carry your Bible and your newspaper and stay up. Stay woke. You hear me? Peace, prosperity, and power. Minister Imhotep, and I am out. Love y'all.